The law of light and shadow. Carl Jung once spoke of the uncanny law that rules the psyche. Where there is light, there is shadow. You have felt this law, even if you could not name it. The strange paradox of human relationships, that the more luminous a soul is, the more resistance, envy, even hostility it awakens in others. It is the empath who knows this most deeply, the one who listens, heals, gives, and yet so often becomes the target of quiet resentment. Why is it that those who carry warmth are also met with coldness? Why is it that the empath, who opens their heart without defense, becomes both beloved and despised? This is not mere coincidence, not bad luck, not even fate in the ordinary sense. It is archetypal. It is the dance between light and shadow. When you, as an empath, walk into a room, something changes. Some are drawn to you as though to a sacred flame. Others shrink, irritated, uncomfortable, though they cannot explain why. On the surface, they may smile, but underneath, their psyche whispers, "You remind me of what I have buried." Your light stirs their shadow, and the shadow resents the one who exposes it. This is the hidden law you must understand if you are to walk the path of an empath without being destroyed by it. So let me ask you, before we go deeper, have you noticed this in your own life? That your kindness sometimes unsettles others? That your very presence becomes a mirror they cannot bear? If so, stay with me. For together we will explore why your light attracts resentment and how to hold that light without letting it be extinguished. Empathy as the vessel of the self. To speak of empathy as if it were merely a trait is to miss its depth. Empathy is not just kindness or sensitivity or compassion. It is an archetypal force, a vessel through which the self, the wholeness of the psyche, chooses to express itself. Jung taught that within every human being lives the self, the totality that seeks to unite opposites to heal the fractures of the soul. And the empath, often without knowing it, becomes the living instrument of this self. They carry a natural openness, a permeability, a willingness to suffer with others. It is no accident. It is not weakness. It is the calling of the archetype. But here lies the danger. For to carry empathy is to walk through the world without armor. Your nervous system is tuned to frequencies others cannot hear. You sense the unspoken grief, the repressed rage, the hidden shame in the people around you, and you respond not only with words, but with your very being. This is why others are drawn to you. They feel seen in a way they have longed for all their lives. Your presence becomes a mirror of possibility. Maybe I too can be accepted, but mirrors cut both ways. For to be reflected also means to be exposed. Your light illuminates not only their beauty, but their shadow. And this is why, alongside gratitude, resentment begins to stir. Imagine this scene. A woman spends her whole life hiding her envy of others. She pushes it deep into the cellar of her soul, convincing herself she is good, kind, selfless. And then she meets you, an empath whose very openness radiates authenticity. Without saying a word, you awaken her shadow. Her envy rises like smoke, and because she cannot face it in herself, she begins to resent you, not because you harmed her, not because you judged her, but because your light revealed what she had buried. This is why empathy is archetypal. It is not about you personally. It is about the energies moving through you. You have become a vessel for something greater, the self striving to make the unconscious conscious, and when that happens, others will be confronted with their own unconscious. Some will thank you, some will despise you. Both reactions reveal the same thing. Your presence touched their shadow. So do not mistake resentment for failure. It is not proof that you are too much or not enough. It is proof that you are carrying the fire. Jung once said, "The gold is in the dark." The empath often becomes the bearer of this paradox. To shine is to reveal darkness. To love is to awaken wounds. To carry the self is to confront the shadow, in yourself and in others. So I will ask you now, have you ever felt punished for simply being yourself? For being too open, too sensitive, too honest? Did you wonder if something was wrong with you? What if it was never about you at all? What if you were carrying an archetype, the vessel of empathy, through which the self speaks? Take a breath. Let that possibility settle into your bones. Because in the next part, we will step into the deeper mystery. Why the empath so often attracts not only gratitude, but also the quiet hostility of those who resent their light. Why light awakens resentment? Carl Jung warned us, the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. This is not a metaphor. It is a psychological law. When you, the empath, step into the room, you bring light. Your honesty, your openness, your authenticity shine quietly, without effort. But light does not only comfort, light exposes. And here is the paradox. People long to be seen, yet fear to be seen fully. They crave connection, but resist exposure, and your presence without trying does both. Imagine a person who has spent their whole life hiding anger. They tell themselves they are peaceful. They avoid conflict, suppress rage, smile even when hurt. They exile their anger into the basement of their psyche. But when they meet you, the empath whose eyes see beneath the mask, the anger begins to stir. Not because you provoke it, not because you criticize them, but because your very light illuminates the shadow they buried. And what do most people do when their shadow rises? They project. They say, "You make me angry. You are too intense. You think you're better than me." But none of these accusations are about you. They are about the shadow within them, awakened by your light. This is why you will notice a strange pattern. Some people adore you instantly. They feel safe, comforted, healed in your presence. While others, equally suddenly, become irritated, jealous, or even hostile. It is not personal. It is archetypal. You carry light, and light awakens whatever lies in darkness. Think of it like this. A candle burns in a dark room. Those who are cold will gather close, grateful for its warmth. Those who have learned to see in darkness will curse the flame because it blinds them to the shadows where they have hidden. Your light is the same. To one person, it is warmth. To another, it is exposure. To both, it is irresistible. This is why resentment is born. Because when people are forced to glimpse their own shadow, the easiest defense is to attack the mirror, and you, the empath, become that mirror. Jung explained projection as the mind's attempt to escape itself. Instead of admitting, "I feel envy," the psyche says, "You make me feel inferior." Instead of owning, "I am ashamed," it whispers, "You think you're better." And suddenly the resentment they feel toward themselves is redirected toward you. So understand this, their resentment is not proof of your failure. It is proof of your light. It reveals not that you are flawed, but that you carry presence powerful enough to awaken what was buried. And this awakening is both blessing and burden. For you may lose friends who cannot bear what you stir within them. You may be misunderstood, judged, even scapegoated. But beneath it all, something deeper is happening. Your light has touched their shadow. Whether they embrace it or resist it is not your choice. Your task is only to keep your flame alive. So let me ask you, can you remember a time when your presence seemed to irritate someone for no reason? A stranger who frowned at you? A friend who suddenly turned cold? A family member who snapped without cause? Ask yourself, was it really about you? Or was it their shadow whispering, "This light shows me what I cannot face"? Take that in. Because in the next part, we will journey deeper into the archetypes behind this dynamic, exploring why empaths so often carry the role of the wounded healer and the martyr, and how these patterns shape their relationships, the archetype of the wounded healer and the martyr. To understand why empaths attract both admiration and resentment, we must look deeper into archetypes, because empathy is not only a trait, it is a myth that lives inside the collective unconscious, and one of the oldest myths is that of the wounded healer. The wounded healer is the one who knows pain so intimately that their very wounds become instruments of healing. They have walked through fire, and because of that, they can walk with others in their fire. Their light does not come from never being broken. It comes from having been broken and carrying the scars as lanterns. Many empaths embody this archetype without realizing it. Their sensitivity was not born in safety. It was forged in survival. As children, they learned to read the moods of a parent to avoid conflict. They learned to soften themselves to keep peace. They learned to listen, to soothe, to anticipate, because their own security depended on it. And so, their gift was also their wound. Their healing power was born from pain. This is why people are drawn to empaths, because they feel understood in places they could never put into words. The empath's light is not superficial, it shines from the depths of wounds transformed. But alongside the wounded healer, another archetype often lives in the empath's psyche, the martyr. The martyr is the one who sacrifices endlessly, who gives and gives and gives until nothing remains, who unconsciously believes, my worth is in my suffering, my value is in my sacrifice. This archetype makes the empath vulnerable, because when the martyr dominates, the empath becomes a vessel for everyone else's shadow. They take on pain that is not theirs. They apologize for feelings that do not belong to them. They bleed so others may feel whole. And here is the cruel irony. The more the empath gives, the more others may begin to resent them. Why? Because deep down, those others sense the imbalance. They feel guilty for taking, ashamed for projecting, and instead of owning that truth, they lash out at the one who mirrors it. Thus, the empath lives caught between two archetypes: the wounded healer, shining light from scars, and the martyr, bleeding themselves dry to keep others comfortable. One empowers, the other enslaves. And resentment from others often reveals which archetype is active. So the work of the empath is not to extinguish their gift, but to discern, am I healing from my wounds, or sacrificing from my wounds? Am I shining from authenticity, or burning myself out to be loved? This is the razor's edge, the difference between the empath who transforms pain into light, and the empath who disappears under the weight of everyone else's shadow. Let me ask you, when you give, do you feel alive, expanded, grounded, or do you feel drained, unseen, quietly bitter? Your answer reveals whether the healer or the martyr is guiding you, and so we begin to see the deeper truth. Resentment toward empaths is not random, it is archetypal. For the light of the wounded healer awakens hope, but the sacrifice of the martyr awakens guilt and hostility. In the next part, we will step into the symbolic language of the unconscious itself, dreams and images that reveal why empaths so often appear as bearers of light, and why that light is both sought after and attacked. The symbolism of light in dreams and myths. The unconscious speaks in images, not arguments, and again across cultures and dreams, one symbol returns: light in darkness. Jung believed these recurring images are not coincidence. They are archetypes, living myths woven into the fabric of the psyche. And for the empath, light is both their gift and their burden. Consider the dream so many empaths describe. A small candle burning in a vast, dark room. Strangers gather around, some drawn to its warmth, others trying to snuff it out. The candle is the empath's soul, fragile, flickering, but undeniable. It cannot illuminate the whole world. Yet even in its smallness, it disrupts the dark. Some hands cup the flame, protecting it. Other hands strike, jealous of its glow. This is the paradox of carrying light. Gratitude and resentment walk side by side. We find the same pattern in myth. Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods to give to humanity, was punished eternally. And not because the fire was evil, but because fire awakens both creativity and destruction. To bring light is to break old boundaries, and every gift that reveals truth also provokes resistance. Think too of Inanna's descent into the underworld. At each gate she surrendered a piece of her adornment until she stood naked before the Queen of the Dead. Yet when she returned, her power was deeper than before. For only those who face the shadow can carry light that cannot be extinguished. Empaths live out these myths in daily life. They enter a room and unconsciously carry the archetype of the candle bearer, the fire bringer. And just like in myth, others respond with ambivalence. Some are healed, some are threatened, some are both at once. Why? Because the light of the empath is not neutral. It reveals, it shows what was hidden, and the hidden rarely wishes to be exposed. Imagine a man who has long denied his loneliness. He distracts himself with work, with noise, with shallow company. Then he meets an empath, someone who looks into his eyes and sees the child still longing to be held. In that moment his shadow rises. He feels both gratitude and rage. Gratitude for being seen, rage for being exposed. This is the candle again, the light that comforts and the light that burns. Dreams will often speak this truth. Empaths dream of carrying lamps, torches, lanterns, always surrounded by figures who both need and resent them. The unconscious is reminding them, this is your archetypal role. Not everyone will bless your light. Some will fear it, some will hate it, but still, you must carry it. So the question is not whether you should shine. The question is, how will you protect your flame when the winds of resentment blow? Take a breath with me. Picture your own inner light, however small, however fragile. Who has gathered around it in your life? Who has tried to guard it? Who has tried to smother it? The answers may tell you more about your relationships than words ever could. In the next part, we will step beyond dream and myth and look at the collective dimension, how entire societies create shadows, and why empaths often become lightning rods for collective resentment, the collective shadow and the scapegoat. Carl Jung warned us, the shadow is not only personal, it is also collective. Whole societies repress what they do not wish to see, and then seek someone to carry it for them. This is the ancient ritual of the scapegoat. In biblical times, a goat was symbolically loaded with the sins of the community and driven into the wilderness. The people felt cleansed because someone else carried what they could not face. But this ritual is not confined to history. It is alive today. Whenever a group projects its shadow onto a single figure, blaming, condemning, resenting them, we are watching the scapegoat archetype unfold. And empaths, too often, become the modern scapegoat. Why? Because their openness, their sensitivity, their light, draws the projections of the collective shadow. They absorb emotions others will not feel. They embody wounds others will not acknowledge. They become the vessel of what the group cannot carry. Think of a workplace where everyone feels silent resentment toward an abusive boss. No one dares to speak, but the empath senses it, they name it, and suddenly they're accused of being negative, too sensitive. The problem. The shadow is projected onto them. They are cast out while the real wound remains hidden. Or think of a family where grief is unspoken. The empath child feels it, cries, trembles, speaks what no one else will, and the family says, "You are too dramatic. Stop making trouble." The shadow of grief is placed upon the empath, who becomes the scapegoat for the pain of all. Jung called this phenomenon participation mystique, the blurring of boundaries where the individual unconsciously carries the psyche of the group. The empath becomes the container for the collective shadow, and resentment toward them is inevitable, because no one likes the one who reveals what they want to deny. But let us see the deeper truth. The scapegoat is not only victim. In myth and ritual, the scapegoat becomes sacred. By carrying the shadow, they become the bridge between the unconscious and the conscious, between the community and the truth it resists. The empath who learns this does not collapse under resentment. They recognize, this anger is not mine, this shame is not mine, I will not carry what belongs to the collective. This recognition is liberation. It is the moment the empath ceases to be scapegoat and begins to be sovereign. So ask yourself now, have you ever been blamed for emotions that were never yours? Have you ever felt the weight of a group's silence projected onto your shoulders? If so, you have touched the archetype of the scapegoat, and if you dare to hold your light steady, that role can transform. You are no longer the outcast. You are the truth teller. You are the one who refuses to carry the lie. In the next part, we will step into the practical, how empaths can set boundaries without dimming their light, how to remain open without being consumed, and how to carry empathy as strength, not sacrifice. Boundaries of light, protecting the empath's flame. The empath's greatest challenge is this: how to remain open without being consumed, how to shine without burning out, how to carry light without letting resentment snuff it out. And the answer is one word: boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are doorways. They are the shape of your yes and the strength of your no. Without boundaries, empathy becomes martyrdom. With boundaries, empathy becomes medicine. Jung taught that individuation, the journey toward wholeness, requires us to integrate the shadow, yes, but also to define the self, to know where I end and where you begin. For the empath, this is the sacred task. Imagine your light as a flame in the center of a circle. Boundaries are the stones you place around it, not to block the warmth, but to protect it from the wind, so others may gather near, but not consume. So the flame burns steady, not wild, not extinguished. This is what it means to protect your empathy. How do we practice this in daily life? First, by noticing the body. When you feel drained after a conversation, ask yourself, what did I agree to carry that was not mine? Your fatigue is a signal. Your body knows when a boundary has been crossed. Second, by claiming language, practice these sentences. I understand, but I cannot take this on. I care, and my answer is no. I hear you, and I will not abandon myself. Each phrase is a stone placed around your flame. Third, by choosing presence over performance. As an empath, you may feel pressured to fix, to soothe, to heal every wound you encounter. But healing is not always your task. Sometimes your role is to witness, not to rescue, to hold space, not to bleed. Here is the paradox. The moment you begin to honor your own boundaries, resentment from others may increase, because they were used to your endless giving. They were comfortable with your martyrdom. And when you step out of that role, their shadow stirs again. But remember, their resentment is not your truth. It is the echo of their shadow meeting your boundary. And each time you hold that line, you teach them a new way. That love does not require self-erasure. Think of it like the archetype of the warrior. The empath must not only be the healer, the child, the martyr. They must also embody the warrior, fierce, grounded, willing to say no. For without the warrior, the healer is consumed. But with the warrior, the healer becomes whole. Jung would say this is individuation in practice, integrating not only light and shadow, but also strength and softness. The empath who learns boundaries is no longer prey to projections. They become sovereign, radiant, steady. So let me ask you now, where in your life is your flame unprotected? Who have you allowed too close until your own light flickers? And what stone, what word, what act, what boundary could you place today to steady the fire again? Pause, breathe, and imagine that circle around your flame. That is not selfishness. That is survival. That is sacred. In the next and final part, we will bring the journey to its conclusion. How empaths can embrace both their light and the resentment it awakens, walking not as victims of projection, but as bearers of the self, whole, radiant, unshakable. Conclusion. So we return to the beginning. Why do empaths attract people who secretly resent their light? Because light always awakens shadow. Because truth always unsettles illusion. Because the heart that shines without armor reveals what others have buried in themselves. Carl Jung reminded us, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You, as an empath, embody this paradox. Your gift is not just that you carry light, but that your light makes the darkness visible. And for this, some will love you. And for this, some will despise you. Both reactions are proof of the same truth. Your presence touched something real. We have walked together through the archetypes of the wounded healer and the martyr, through the candle that burns in the dark, through the scapegoat who carries the shadow of the group, through the necessity of boundaries that guard the flame. And now you see, resentment toward empaths is not personal, it is archetypal. It is the ancient dance of light and shadow, played out in every relationship, every community, every culture. Your task is not to extinguish your light to avoid resentment. Your task is to carry it wisely, fiercely, tenderly. So how do you do this? By remembering that your empathy was forged in wounds, but it need not end in martyrdom. By honoring your boundaries as sacred. By listening to your shadow, so it does not need to scream. By walking the path of individuation, bringing all that was hidden into wholeness. When you do this, resentment no longer defines you. It becomes background noise. You remain steady, radiant, rooted. You become what Jung called the self in its fullness, not perfect, but whole. Now I turn to you. Yes, you who are listening right now. What is your shadow trying to tell you? What truth have you hidden behind your smile? Write it in the comments beginning with this phrase, "My light is teaching me that." Let your words be the mirror someone else needs. Your sentence may be the lantern another soul is waiting for. And if this journey spoke to you, do not walk it alone. Subscribe to Inner Balance Psychology. Here we explore Carl Jung's wisdom, shadow work, individuation, archetypes, the Red Book. Not as theories, but as lived experiences. Each video is an invitation to step more fully into your own wholeness. Because this is not just Jung's story. It is not just my story. It is your story. The question is, will you dim your light to make others comfortable? Or will you carry it into the world, steady, sovereign, unafraid of the shadows it awakens? The shadow is waiting. The light is waiting, and you are waiting. Step in, breathe, and begin.